Good morning and welcome to another Day Ticket episode. Now today, as you can see by the weather, it is chucking it down. We're down at Linear Fisheries on Hardwick Smiths. Now to be honest, I haven't really fished this lake a lot and it's got an incredible stock of carp, and to be honest I should do a lot more time down here. But in true filming fashion, I came down yesterday just before the cameras arrived, got the rods out just on dark. Yeah, it was a quiet night, lost one this morning. Got the rod back out there and I'm glad I did, because we're hooked into the first fish of the session hopefully. Here she comes, first carp from Hardwick Smiths, just on there. Oh, let's stuck on something. There we go, the first carp from Hardwick Smiths, and it's a pretty chunky mirror and I'm buzzing about being able to get off the mark. Like I said, the weather isn't the best today, perfect for carp fishing, but we've got one in the net. Let's get it out. Let's see how the rest of the session plans out. What a perfect start to our session down here at Hardwick. I got the rods out. To be honest, I put quite a lot of bait out on the spot. I've seen a few fish showing in the area, and about 10 minutes before this one picked up a hook bait, I had one show just behind the spot, and I sort of had a sneaky feeling it wasn't going to be too long. Yeah, like I said, this is actually my first ever carp from Hardwick. So yeah, I'm going to get it back. I'm going to reel in the rods now, sort of put new rigs out there, refreshing the spot up, and see if we can catch a few more beautiful mirrors, just like this one here. In my eyes, I feel that Hardwick is the most overlooked lake down here at the Linear complex. To be honest, including myself, I don't fish it as much as I should do, but it has an incredible stock and it's really famous for the scaly carp that reside in there. What sets this lake apart from the other lakes on the complex is Hardwick. I'd say it's got a lot more features compared to the other lakes. There's a variation in depth, plenty of margin features, and this is something that you don't get on the other lakes on the complex. The thing that I really like about this lake the most is, since there's such a variation in depth, you always feel like there's a chance that you'll be able to get a bite. If it's cold, you've got deep water. If it's warm like we've had on this session, you can fish on top of the bars, you can catch on zigs, you can catch on the bottom, and it's a great venue to try different methods and try and catch multiple carp. I'm not going to deny it, the swim that I fished on this session, it is a very popular swim on Hardwick, and I was fairly lucky to walk down there and see that it was available. Now, I went down into that peg, looked across the water, seen a few fish showing, and I'd spoke to a couple of mates and they'd told me about a feature out there. I was seeing the fish show around this feature, and with the weather conditions moving in, I felt like this was going to be the perfect area. The feature that I found on this session, it was quite a unique feature and it was somewhere where I was going to be really happy fishing on. Now, it was quite a raised bar, it was probably around 14 foot in depth, but just to the left it went down to around 25 to 30 foot of water, and that was a really sharp shell falling down. On the back of the spot there was a bit of weed growth, but as you moved a little bit closer, 18 to 17.5 wraps, it was nice clean gravel. Yes, there was the odd little bit of weed here and there, but I felt like putting the bait on this feature, I could just imagine that being an area where the carp would want to feed. We're coming into evening time now. I've got the rods out for the night, and yeah, today we've been able to catch the first fish of the session, and just a little over 30 pounds, I'm certainly not going to complain. Moving into this evening, I am feeling fairly confident. The wind's pushing nicely down here. At the moment I'm watching several carp show, not in my water, a little bit further right, but I am confident through the hours of darkness them fish are going to creep into this area. So I've just redone the rods, I've made sure that they're bang on the money. It did take a couple of casts. Like I said, I'm fishing on quite a raised feature, and depending on how I hit the clip, meant I'd either land on the bar or a little bit short. So I've took my time and I'm just going to leave them out there for the evening. It's kind of hard to believe, but just a few hours ago it was chucking it down. I've got a pizza on the way, so I'm just going to see the evening in, eat the pizza, and as we're eating, maybe the carp will also be up for a little bit of a feed. I'm not really a fan of mornings, but if your morning starts off with a bite, then I'll take it. To be honest, last night was a little bit quiet. This was actually the final rod left out on the spot, and the reason is I actually caught 2 bream last night, and trust me, they were absolutely massive. One of them must have been around 17-18 pounds, it was huge. And like I said, they were a couple of hours ago, and I sort of just, it was a bit lazy, I just left the rods up against the bivvy. Thought I'd rechuck them this morning. I woke up probably about 10 minutes ago, just saw a laying there on the bed with my eyes closed, and the final rod on the spot has screamed off. It's definitely not a bream. If it is a bream, it's a 20-pound bream. Scorpic squid rafter, a little bit of yellow sweet corn. Got ya. And there's our morning prize. Just on first light, we've been able to catch the second carp of the session. To be honest, it was quite a busy night. All 3 rods were able to get bites. Unfortunately, though, the other 2 rods were bream, so they don't really count. But on first light, we've been able to catch this one. And I sort of feel like that's going to be how the day progresses. As this sun creeps up and the temperatures start increasing, I can imagine them carp creeping onto the shallow spot where my rods are. I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to get this fish put back, get the rods reset for the day, and hopefully we're going to be able to catch a few more. On this session, the carp have been getting ready for spawning. The temperatures are increasing, and to be honest, I think we're only a few days away before them carp spawn. And because of this, them fish are really on the feed. It was evident when I was in the swim, the fish were showing out there, and this sort of helped me in terms of how much bait I was going to be putting out for this session. Normally, I'll start a session with around 8 to 10 dot spods, but deep down with how active the carp have been on this session, I felt like that wasn't going to be enough bait. And because of this, I increased it to around 20 dot spods. It might sound like a lot of bait, but like I said, them carp are really on the feed, and I needed something to get them fish into the area. As your session goes on, you want to be thinking about how much bait you want to reintroduce onto the spot to keep it topped up and to keep them fish feeding. Now, there's a couple of factors that help me decide how much bait I'm going to be putting in. The first main factor is, have I actually caught anything? Have I caught any tench, bream, carp, nuisance fish? Are they clearing out the spot? Are birds clearing out the spot? If I've caught a couple of carp, then I'll put a few dot spods onto the spot. I mentioned birds again. If they're diving down, yes, they're not going to clear the bait as quick as fish, but if they are diving down slowly, they are going to take away bait from the spot. So if birds are diving, maybe 1 to 2 dot spods. If I've caught a couple of carp, maybe 3 to 4 dot spods. Or if it's absolute carnage, the fish are showing out there, you're getting plenty of bites, then I'll just constantly put a couple of dot spods out every half an hour just to keep that constant trickle of bait going onto the bottom. I'm just about to make a fresh mix, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the ingredients and the reasons why I'm putting them in this spod mix, and more so why I'm doing it down here at Hardwick. So the first ingredient that I'm going to be adding into the spod mix is oily hemp. Now, to be honest, where allowed, I'll always add particles into the mix, and more so hemp. It's a great particle for keeping the fish grubbing around, and yeah, like I said, I've just got massive confidence in including this in any spod mix that I'm making. So I'll get that in the bucket now. Get all that in there. I'd already used about half a jar on this session, so I'd say there's about half a jar again in there. Like I say, it's just a great particle, so put that down there. And the next particle that I'm going to be adding in is sweet corn. Now, to be honest, again, it's a particle that I'll always put in my spod mix, and although I haven't fished over here on Hardwick that much in the past, after speaking to friends and previous success that they've had on here, sweet corn does work, but they have recommended not putting as much in the mix. Now, I'm not sure if it's because the fish are a little bit wary of the colour, but I'm still going to be adding it in the spod mix as it will also give me a hook bait option. I'm just going to give that a mix, and that already is looking really good. Now the next two ingredients that I'm going to be adding are sweet tiger nuts and the tiger nut slush. Now the reason why I'm going to be adding these into the mix, down here at Hardwick there are quite a few nuisance fish, including a lot of tench, and I feel like adding the sweet tigers and the tiger nut slush into the mix, if them nuisance species do move on the spot and they clear out the hemp and sweet corn, there's still going to be bait there for when the carp move in. And now the final ingredient that I'm going to be adding into the mix is Scopex squid flake. Now when I'm fishing out there in the middle of the lake, I'm currently fishing on quite a savage bar, and I feel like if I was to use round boilies, 12 and 15 millers, I sort of feel like they just roll off the shelf down into the deep water and I'll be baiting up inaccurately and not near the rigs. But with the flake, when that sinks down onto the spot, it's going to grip onto the bottom, making sure that I'm baiting up accurately on top of the bar. So I'm just going to add a couple of handfuls of the flake into this mix, not too much, probably one more handful. Give that one final mix, and that is looking perfect into trying to tempt a few carp feeding on the spot. As you can see, plenty of particles to keep the fish grubbing around, a little bit of colour, plenty of hook bait options, and I don't think there's a more perfect mix to use down here on Hardwick. On this session I've been using blowback rigs. As mentioned, I've been fishing on top of a fairly clean bar. However, on the left hand side and towards the back end of the spot, there was a little bit of silt and a little bit of weed, and I felt like if I was putting a wafter or bottom bait in this area on a blowback rig, I'd sort of have that doubt in my mind, was that rig actually fishing? Now, the beautiful thing about a blowback rig is you can actually fish a pop-up on the rig. So on my left-hand rod, that's exactly what I'd done. I put a 12mm pop-up on, and all I'd done underneath the hook was I put a split shot underneath just to balance the rig perfectly and making sure that that pop-up landed. If it landed a little bit soft or a little bit in weed, I knew that rig was going to be presented and it would be fishing. For this Fishery in Focus, we're currently down at Linear Fisheries. For people who aren't familiar with Linear, it's a 7-lake day ticket complex in Oxford, but for this Fishery in Focus in particular, we're going to be looking at Hardwick Smiths. The stock in Hardwick Smiths is really overlooked. In here you've got around 1,500 carp. The average size in here is around 20 to 25 pounds, going up to 45. Now there's a couple of known fish in there, but my favourite and the fish that I can only dream of catching is a fish known as the coverfish. This is actually a Linear original. It's really old, but when you look at it, it is just an amazing creature, and I'd love to catch that fish one day. That isn't the only amazing carp in there, and the thing that sets this lake apart is the amount of beautiful, heavily skilled mivers in here. The zip linears, fully skilled. I feel like a lot of people believe Linear is just full of plain mivers, but Hardwick Smiths really is the jewel in the Linear crown when it comes to the stock of carp. This lake is approximately 25 acres in size with 41 pegs located around the bank. Now the topography in this lake is up and down, and when you're arriving at this venue it can be a little bit of a head scramble in terms of which spot should you be fishing or what depth of water should you be fishing. So what I'm going to do now is give you a guided tour around the lake with the use of the iPad and show you some of the hot spots, some of the areas where I'll be checking out to try and locate them carp. When you look at the map of Hardwick Smiths, you can see that the water is actually broken up into two bodies connected by a small channel. You've got the Hardwick side and the Smith side. We're going to be focusing on the Hardwick side to begin with. This is the larger of the two bodies of water, and this is actually where I've been fishing on this session. Starting off in pegs 1 to 6. These are the first few pegs that you'll come to when you're leaving the car park, but if you're fishing pegs 3 and 4, around 16 to 18 wraps out in the open water there's actually a gravel bar, and if I was fishing in these pegs I'd certainly be checking out this area. Moving further down this bank, you then met with peg 6. Now peg 6, to be honest, is a very popular peg on the lake, and the main reason for this is you get a great access to open water. Now if you're in this swim, the spot that you want to be fishing is 24 wraps, and you want to be aiming towards the silver birch in between the two spits. This is also a great holding area in the winter months. The fish tend to congregate in that area, so if you're coming down in the colder months, do not ignore peg 6. Moving directly opposite from peg 6, you then met with 11, 12 and 13. These are located on the left hand side spit as you look at the map. My personal favourite on this spit is peg 13, and there's a couple of different reasons why. The first one is, as mentioned, this lake is split up into two halves, and in Peg 13 you're able to fish the channel that connect these two waters. Because of this, it can be a great interception point as the fish move from A to B. The other thing that I like about this swim is if you aim 13 laps out, there's a nice clear area, there's a bit of clear out there, and again, as the fish sort of move in between the two lakes and they're looking for a bit of food, this is the perfect area to present your rigs. Staying on the Hardwick side of the lake, moving on to the next bit, on the end of this area is a swim known as the hotspot, and this is actually the peg that we've been fishing on this session. In front of this peg you've got quite deep water in close, but as you move further out, around 18 to 18.5 wraps, there's a perfect gravel bar around 14 foot in depth, and this is the feature that I've been fishing on this session. You then met with a conveyor bank. Now this bank is perfect if you're wanting to have a nice comfortable session, as you can actually drive along this bank, unload your gear into the swim and get fishing straight away. If I was fishing on this bank, the main swim where I'd focus my attention is peg 41. Now the reason I'd be focusing on this area is if you aim 20 wraps towards pegs 9 and 10, you're actually fishing off the back of the hotspot swim, and this can also be a great area picking the fish off the back of that bar. We're now going to be moving onto the Smiths side. Now this is smaller than the Hardwick side, and to be honest, the fishing style is a little bit different in this area. When you're on Hardwick, there's a bit of range fishing involved, but in Smiths, it's a lot more intimate and you can catch fish at close quarters. If I was fishing in the Smiths side and I was looking to do a little bit of margin fishing, certainly check out around peg 18, peg 17, as the fish love to patrol down this corner. You can catch fish really close quarters, and this is something that's often overlooked when fishing down at Linear, and especially Hardwick and Smiths. Moving on the top bank of Smiths, pegs 25 to 28. Now these pegs are also a great holding area in the winter months, just like peg 6. When you move into pegs 26 and 27 specifically, you can actually reach the back of the spit that connects Hardwick into Smiths. Now this is a great interception point, just like peg 13, so if the fish are using this area, don't ignore these pegs. The great thing about this lake is the fish move around a hell of a lot. So yes, I've mentioned a few of the swims and a few of the areas that I'd be checking out when fishing this lake, but speak to the bailiff, speak to anglers and figure out where them fish are getting caught from. One day they could be in Hardwick, the next they could be in Smiths. It's all about assessing the situation that you're fishing in. If you want more information fishing down on the Linear Fisheries complex, and more so Hardwick and Smiths, make sure to go check out the social media and website. We're moving into the final evening of the session now, and to be honest, today's been a little bit of a funny one. Yesterday when I was looking at the forecast, today it was forecast to be really warm, not much wind, and I could really imagine them carp moving onto the spot where I've positioned the rods, but that hasn't been the case. It's been quite cold, a bit of a wind blowing across the lake, and I think that sort of changed the way that the carp have behaved today compared to what I was expecting. Now, hindsight's a wonderful thing. There's been plenty of fish showing out there. I haven't been able to catch anything, and I feel like this morning I should have topped up the spot. But we learn from our mistakes. The rods are out there now. I've baited up a little bit later compared to what I wanted, but that wind has been so savage, I feel like waiting a little bit longer to make sure that I can be accurate should pay off. So I'm just going to see the evening in. The fish are still showing out there. I feel like I've got the tactics right. So fingers crossed it's not going to be too long until one of those bobbins pulls up tight. Well, it's about 11:30, and about 20 minutes ago I actually had a strange occurrence. I thought I was away. I made contact with the fish, but it came off pretty quick. It could have been a trailer. I was quick to get the rod back out, and I'm glad I did, because the same rod, has just pulled up and we're away again. It's coming in pretty quick, but we're into another Hardwick carp. There's a few fish boshing out there. It is bloody cold. Trust me when I say this, although it's May, it is absolutely freezing cold, but we've been able to catch a Linear from Linear. I've just leant the rod up against the bivvy, But once this fish goes back, I'm going to get the rod back out there, as there's clearly a few fish out in the area. I'm laying there on my bed, I can hear them crashing out there, and it's making me feel really confident for the rest of the night. On this session, bite time has been fairly sporadic. There's been people catching in the morning, afternoon and night, and because of this, it's been quite hard to judge when you're going to get a bite. I feel that it's really important to make sure that you're accurate and you're constantly prepared, and them rods are in the water for as long as possible, as you don't know when them fish are going to turn up and have a bit of a feed. There's no good having your rods out on the spot and you sort of have that doubt in your mind, are you actually fishing? Have the rods maybe fell a little bit short, a little bit past the feature? Is that feeding time? Could be at any time of the day. Them fish could turn up, go away and you haven't caught anything. So just make sure you're fishing as accurately and as effectively for as much time as possible. I'm going to run through my 3 top tips for fishing down here on Hardwick Smiths. My first tip is, Linear is a busy day ticket complex and I feel like a lot of people are peer pressured into making sure that they're first on the gate in the morning. Now the problem with this is, you'll turn up, there'll be plenty of cars waiting on the gate, and when them gates open there's a mad rush to try and find a swim. But to be honest, when you go through there, all you're going to find is everyone who are fishing on the lake, but all still in bed, and you're not going to be able to speak to people and figure out when people are leaving. So I'd aim to arrive around 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, maybe even later. Take your time and find the perfect swim for your session. The second tip for fishing on Hardwick Smiths is, there's a lot of variation in depth. One minute you can be fishing in the shallow water and the next you can be fishing in the deep. So when you're hitting the clip and you're fishing on top of the bars, it's really important to make sure that you hit the clip in the exact same position. Even if you move your rod just a little bit forward, you might be landing a lot deeper than you're expecting, so make sure that them rigs land bang on the money on top of those bars. My final tip for fishing on Hardwick Smiths is, if you fish in an area where the bars are really savage, make sure that you fish with strong mainline and more so put a braided leader on. It might sound simple, but the last thing that you want to be doing is fishing, getting a bite and then getting cut off, because you're going to be leaving trailing line in the water, you're going to be losing tackle and more so putting that fish in danger. It's the final morning down here at Hardwick, and this morning couldn't have went any better. After that fish last night, I got the rod back out. I caught another bream. Got the rod back out again. Just on first light, it went off, and I've landed possibly the best looking carp that I've ever landed down here at Linear. We were just about to get that out, sort it out for the cameras, and the left-hander has absolutely screamed off. We've got a couple of hours of the session left, but to be honest, I'm really excited to get that other fish back out on the map, because it is an incredible carp and the exact reason why you come down here to Hardwick. But you never know, this one might be a little bit bigger. I don't think it can get prettier, but yeah, it's going good. Let's get this one in the net. There's our little morning interruption. We were just about to get the other fish onto the mat, and then the rod, that recast back out on the spot, ripped off with this one. Only a stocky, about 12 pounds, but it shows that the future's bright. But I'm going to get it put back because we have an absolute banger waiting down in the sling. Check that one out. The second part of this morning's brace. Linear is sort of known for having big, plain, chunky mirrors, but this one certainly puts that myth to bed, and I am absolutely buzzing to catch this one for the cameras. And it sort of rounds up this session really nice down here at Hardwick. If you're after some scaly mirrors on a day ticket, check this place out, as I'll certainly be coming down here again in the not too distant future. I've really enjoyed my time down on Hardwick Smiths. Now, I haven't fished that lake as much as I should have in the past, but after this session I'm certainly inspired, and I'm going to be having a few more sessions down there. The reason why? Well, the carp that I've caught on this session have simply been incredible. I feel like Linear is famous for big fat plain mirrors, but that is not what I've been catching on this session. I've caught a couple of 30s which have been absolutely beautiful, a couple of 20s and one that will be a real stunner in the future. I feel like in this session I've learnt a few things that I'll certainly be applying a lot more when I fish that lake in the future. The main thing is making sure that you're applying bait on the spot and keeping it topped up, as I certainly feel like there's been times in this session where I should have topped up. Hindsight's a beautiful thing, but I feel like taking that into my next session, hopefully it's going to improve my chances and I'll be able to catch a few more fish from Hardwick and Smiths.